Before we begin today's reading, let's preview the text using our Thieves reading strategy. Remember, the T stands for title, Freshwater Environments. The H stands for headings, lakes. Doesn't look like there are any headings here, so must continue reading about lakes, ponds, vernal pools, and rivers. The I in our Thieves reading strategy stands for introduction. So listen and follow along as I read the introduction. Let's begin our tour of aquatic environments on Earth. There are two kinds of freshwater environments, standing water environments and flow water environments. Lakes are the most common standing water environments. Other standing water environments are ponds and vernal pools. Rivers, streams, and creeks are flowing water environments. So the E stands for every first sentence in each section. So we know what sections are by our headers. So lakes. First sentence, please follow along. Lakes are bodies of water surrounded by land. Okay, I think I knew that. I'm sure all my super smart fourth graders knew that as well. Ponds, probably know this one too. A pond is a small, shallow body of water. Vernal pools, ooh, that might be a new word. Let's take a look at the first sentence. A vernal pool is a shallow, temporary pond. Oh, okay, I didn't know that. And the last section, rivers. Rivers are large bodies of moving fresh water. All right, the V in Thieves stands for our visuals and our vocabulary. So here we have a picture of a river. Looks like a table, the world's 5 longest rivers. We're going to take a look about some of the lakes. Lake Baikal, pictures of the pond. Oh, look at this right here. This is interesting. Right here. Don't forget, our V also stands for vocabulary. So phytoplankton, zooplankton. Oh, okay, that's probably what this is. Algae. All right, let's see if we have any other vocabulary words. Source. Okay, I know what source means, but maybe I'll learn about what it means when we're talking about these bodies of water. And lastly, E is our end of article questions. Okay, so here are our questions. Thinking about freshwater environments. Question 1. What living and non-living factors define a shallow water zone? Question 2. What role do phytoplankton play in a freshwater environment? And the last question. How are lake and river organisms different? Now that we've spent a couple minutes previewing our text, let's begin reading. Please follow along as you listen. Freshwater environments. Let's begin our tour of aquatic environments on Earth. There are two kinds of freshwater environments, standing water environments and flowing water environments. Lakes are the most common standing water environments. Other standing water environments are ponds and vernal pools. Rivers, streams, and creeks are flowing water environments. Lakes. Lakes are bodies of water surrounded by land. They are all over the world. Some lakes are low in valleys, like the Finger Lakes in New York State. Others are high in mountains, like Lake 12,460 in Sequoia National Park. It's high in the Sierra Nevada range in California. Less than 1% of Earth's water is in freshwater lakes. Although lakes are called standing water environments, the water in lakes is always moving. Water moves from one part of the lake to another. Streams flowing into the lake move the water. When the weather gets cold, water near the surface gets cold and sinks towards the bottom. Moving water carries oxygen and nutrients to other parts of the lake. All right, so here's our picture of Lake 12,460 in Sequoia National Park in California. Let's continue reading on page 28. Please follow along. Large lakes often have 3 different zones. These are the shallow water zone, the open water zone, and the deep water zone. Each zone provides a different environment. The shallow water zone is near the shore. The water is shallow enough for sunlight to reach the lake bottom. The shallow water zone often has rooted plants such as water lilies growing in the muddy bottom. Floating plants and algae may cover the surface of the water. Insect larvae swim around the plants and burrow into the mud. Insect larvae are food for larger animals such as fish and frogs. Ducks, other birds, and small mammals live in the shallow water zone. The open water zone is farther out in the lake. The water is deeper. There are no rooted plants. Sunlight is bright near the surface of the open water zone. The light is dim in the deeper water. 2 important kinds of microscopic organisms live in this open water zone. Phytoplankton are tiny plant-like organisms. They are the grass of the lake environment. They are eaten by zooplankton. Zooplankton are microscopic animals in the lake environment. The zooplankton are food for insects and baby fish in the lake. Larger fish, such as trout and largemouth bass, live in the open and deep water zones. Birds, such as ducks, gulls, and grebes, also live in the open water zone. In big lakes, there is a deep water zone. This zone is dark, and the water is cold all the time. Water from higher levels in the lake doesn't mix with the deep water, so there's less oxygen in the deep water zone. Only animals that need little oxygen and light live at the bottom of the lake. These animals include some insects and lake trout. All right, so here we have the different zones. Right here near the shore is our shallow water zone. Right here is our open water zone where we have our phytoplankton that's eaten by our zooplankton. And here in large bodies of water, there's a deep water zone, right? Where there's not a lot of sunlight, there's not a lot of oxygen. So there's really only a few fish like trout. Here we have our phytoplankton. And this is a picture of our phytoplankton that we're able to see under a microscope. That's why they're called microscopic. All right. And then here we have a table, the world's 5 largest freshwater lakes. Can you see where the biggest lakes are? Do you recognize any of those lakes? Maybe somebody who's lived near the Great Lakes in the Midwest. Let's continue reading. We're at the top of page 30, ponds. A pond is a small, shallow body of water. Sunlight reaches the bottom of the pond. Plants and algae may cover the entire surface of the pond. Plants may be rooted or floating. Ponds also have large numbers of phytoplankton and zooplankton. Some animals that live in ponds are fish, birds, crayfish, frogs, snails, scuds, insects, turtles, and worms. Vernal pools. We're at the top of page 31. A vernal pool is a shallow temporary pond. Vernal means spring. Vernal pools form when water collects in low places in the land. This happens during the rainy season or when snow melts in the spring. Vernal pools dry up during the dry season or the summer. When it is filled with water, the vernal pool is full of life. When it is dry, it looks like a mudflat. Vernal pool plants and animals remain dormant during dry periods. When the pools fill with water again, the organisms reproduce and thrive. Salamanders, frogs, and many insects reproduce in vernal pools. Rivers. Rivers are large bodies of moving fresh water. They usually flow into other rivers or into the ocean. Rivers often flow faster near their source in the mountains where the land is steep. Animals that live in the upper part of a river survive by being good swimmers or by holding tightly to rocks and twigs. Trout are strong swimmers. Insect larvae have hooks for holding on. As rivers flow toward the ocean, their currents may slow. Plants and animals in the lower parts of rivers are more like those that live in lakes. Smaller moving water environments include creeks, brooks, and streams. All right, so over here by the ponds, we have plants and algae can grow over the surface of a pond. All right. Let's take a look at this. Look at the pond. Remember in ponds that plants like these can be rooted or they could be floating. All right. Let's read about Lake Baikal. Lake Baikal in Russia is the world's deepest freshwater lake. It is also the largest freshwater lake by volume. 20% of the fresh water on Earth is in this one lake. It is 1,637 meters deep and has a surface area of 31,468 square kilometers. The lake formed about 25 million years ago and is the oldest lake in the world. There are over 1,500 kinds of animals that live only in the Lake Baikal region. Pollution from a nearby paper-making factory almost destroyed many of these animals in the 1950s and 1960s. Efforts to clean up the pollution have brought back much of the wildlife. However, Lake Baikal remains threatened by pollution. Now that we've completed today's reading, let's take a look at our discussion questions. We're at the bottom of page 31. Question 1. What living and non-living factors define a lake's shallow water zone? Think about the living factors like plants and animals that are found in the shallow water zone. Make sure to describe the non-living factors of the shallow water zone, like sunlight, oxygen, soil, or temperature. Question number 2. What role do phytoplankton play in a freshwater environment? Remember that phytoplankton are like the grass of the lake water environment. Question number 3. How are lake and river organisms different? All right. Make sure to complete today's assignment, Freshwater Environments discussion questions. Have an amazing Osprey day.